Main mission, Illusion at Journey's End. This mission is now available. The following side mission has been unlocked. Battle Simulator. The following side mission has been unlocked. Tutorial, tutorial, tutorial. You can talk to people while on the world map. Press whatever to open the game menu, then select Talk to initiate a conversation. These chats will give you glimpses into the everyday lives of the people of this world, as if you actually gave a shit. Each mission has a predetermined mission level. Make sure to compare this with your average equipment level before attempting a mission. The lower your average equipment level is compared to the mission level, the more break damage you will receive and the less break damage you will deal. So like I said, when I played this game earlier, every mission level, I was about 40 to 60 levels under for average equipment level. So I got fucking handed a lot, stupidly, because the game just was not supplying me with sufficient enough gear to actually do anything. And I couldn't do shit, and I didn't understand the game, and I was like, okay, well, what the fuck? Like, if the game isn't gonna give me sufficient gear that's relevant to the gear level of, like, the stage I'm trying to do, I don't understand what they want. So that's part of the thing I have with this game, is if I go into the menu here, I don't have anything yet, but if I had to describe it, let's read this first. Change jobs and gear from the battle settings menu. Use L1 and R1 to choose what character you want to customize. Be aware that party members other than Jack are limited in the equipment they can use. Changing equipment affects various stats, and pressing whatever will automatically equip the gear at the highest level. Every piece of equipment has a level that determines its stats and the strength of its effects. So this is where my problem with this game mainly comes in handy. So, in contrast to Neo, for example, I can be like 30 or 40 or 50 levels under-geared for whatever fucking mission I'm running and be perfectly fine because I've adapted to the game well enough to be able to shirk around it to the point where gear doesn't matter as much as it normally would in normal average circumstance. But in this game, Jack can use pretty much everything, but your party members can only use specific things. So if you look at the red text on the bottom left of the image of like whatever piece of gear I'm going over, is you'll see J, A, and G, E, or J-E rather, I can't read. So essentially what that means is whatever those aren't highlighted means that that character cannot use a certain piece of gear. So if the game just decides to be a complete RNG shitlord and not drop you anything you can use, you're just essentially fucked. And it's really stupid. And you'd think, okay, well if you can't get the proficiency bonuses for whatever class you're running, just, equip something with the highest level. It doesn't matter. It legit doesn't matter. It does not change shit. So right here you can see the mission level says 5, average equipment level 1, so this mission is totally doable. It's within our parameters. We're totally fine, right? Completion rewards, we get 2 Anima Shards, we get a Greatsword, we get Strider Brays, and Strider Gaiters. And those are proficiencies right there. So if you're running that class, you want that proficiency, right? And you can mix just like Neo, how you can have 3 of one set, 5 of another set, whatever. This game pretty much works the same way. So you want a certain amount of pieces to unlock whatever effects on whatever gear you want and call it good for that set you're running. But it gets a little bit more complicated than that, though it's not really anything too unorthodox. It's pretty easy to follow. Main item drops, all that bullshit. So Jed runs dual blades, Ash runs fists. So we're going to be keeping an eye out for Poogless stuff for Ash, and we're going to be keeping an eye out for Duelist stuff for Jed, because those are their starting classes, pretty much. And then, the other thing that I have with this game, hold on, Fool's Missive 3, Chaos Shrine 2, I had never known a shrine to be here, not in all my past observations. Seems to have suddenly appeared, yet no one has paid this phenomenon any mind. Something must have happened, but what could have triggered this to appear in the distant future, in a place where no one would interfere? So, my problem with this game mainly stems from Jed and Ash and all your other party members unlock different jobs as you progress through the game because you do side missions to get them different jobs, right? But you don't know what job is effective with what characters, and there's no way to tell unless you actually observe them in battle. But this game is so technical, and like I said, the counter is incredibly important in this game. So if you're not retaining hyper-focus on what's going on with you personally, it's very difficult to gauge how useful your companions are.
Guess we'll just show ourselves in.
And I feel like a lot of these elements Team Ninja didn't really take into account, though the approach to the loot system was good in theory. It wasn't exercised very well. And there's a lot of RNG that plays into it when it comes to proficiencies and classes and available gear for different party members and all that yada 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 yada. So the other weapon that I learned to use in the meantime is sword. So we're going to be looking for sword stuff and sword fighter stuff as well. Resonance. Press left D-pad or right D-pad to act an ally's resonance state, during which they will use their abilities more aggressively. That is also incredibly important, because the way the battles are constructed is they expect you to use that whenever you can. So it has a cooldown from what I can tell, and you have to wait until that cooldown obviously resets before you can tell your allies to go big dick mode again. And there's a certain boss later that I'm not going to mention yet, but I'll hopefully keep it in mind and mention it when we get there. And it's really fucking frustrating. Because again, I don't think they thought it out very well, and like what they expect you to do doesn't work consistently. At least from what I can tell. And like keep in mind, I fought all the bosses in this game quite a few times over. Like I would say maybe a max of 10 for like the majority of the bosses. So like I have a fair idea of what they do. Battle sets. Switching. You can instantly change from one battle set to the other with triangle. Each set has its own break gauge. Switch carefully between the two to give yourself an edge in battle. Also very important. You can change your battle sets by opening the battle settings menu and pressing triangle. So that was one of the things that I was talking about that I neglected on my first playthrough. So like I said, I never ran a secondary class to swap to. So that mechanic was just totally alien to me. So essentially it's like the quintessential functionality of this game in contrast to Neo, which has stance swap. This one is like a set swap, so... Some enemies cannot be staggered by regular attacks. Soul Shield, Circle, and action abilities R2, however, can still stagger them. In addition, using L or right will cause your allies to use abilities more frequently. Stagger enemies first, then move in to deal the killing blow. This is another fucking thing about this game. It's like it says, some enemies cannot be staggered by just basic attacks, and there's no way to tell what that applies in regards to, so it kind of sucks. Like, I tried to block right there, and I couldn't. Like, the game just wouldn't take the input, I'm assuming because I was coming out of an animation. Jack will be broken when his break gauge is depleted, causing him to be temporarily defenseless. This will also decrease his max MP and remove any buffs or instant ability effects. Okay, I didn't know that either. Yeah, that's bullshit right there. That's whatever, though. So... Greatsword, as you could probably surmise, is a very big dick, slow clunk weapon, so like it's basically just damage and hit shit and, you know, whatever. So like that's the style that I learned to play. And then I learned to play like a brighter version of this style essentially, or a lighter version, not a blighter version, with basically the basic sword, so. Touch the cubes to restore your HP, MP, and refill your potions. If your max MP is lower than your initial MP, it will be restored to the initial value. Doing so will revive any slain enemies and remove any unclaimed items from the field. When you fall in battle, you will return to the last set of cubes you have touched. Upon leveling up, you will be rewarded with job points. Job points can be used on the job tree to unlock skills and abilities. You can access the tree from various locations, including cubes in the world map. So this is another issue that I tend to have with Koei Tecmo games, and this is more of a personal issue. But for those who have been here a while, my memory is absolute dog shit. So when Neo and games that Koei Tecmo has also produced, when they throw information walls at you and you just have to absorb like a ton of information at a time, it's very easily to like lose shit in translation, so. Magic attacks and status ailments. Guarding against magic damage. Magic attacks like fire will still deal some damage even if you guard. Continuous hits with certain attacks will inflict status ailments. Additionally, taking damage from the same element repeatedly will make you vulnerable to that element, temporarily allowing subsequent attacks of the same type to deal even greater damage. So, if I were to get hit by this fireball, I would get like a little red tag that basically says, oh, like, you have this fire debuff on you now, so like, if you get hit by fire again, it's gonna hurt like shit. Essentially, so like, I don't know if there's a buff to get those kind of statuses off you, so you have to deal with elemental damage less or what, but basically the strat that I've come up with these little fireballs is just hang back, let them shoot fire, shoot them with their own fire, and make them explode so you don't have to fight them because they fucking suck ass. Like the majority of shit in this game. So.
Up ahead. This way looks safe enough.
So, something you've noticed that when I'm fighting enemies one-on-one, I don't struggle that much. Or even if it's like 1 or 2 enemies at a time, it's like totally manageable. Now, later on in this game, they will literally throw situations at you where there's like 14 enemies in a room. And they will be doing shit off-screen that you just cannot see. They will do shit out of the fucking camera, they will perfectly track you, and all sorts of other ridiculous bullshit that you just can't be expected to deal with. And I don't feel like there was a lot of thought that went into like how you were going to counteract that. And they were just like, oh, use Lightbringer, it makes enemies easier to break. Well, it's like impossible to do when you're getting hit from 15 different directions and you can't even tell what the fuck is hitting you half the time. And then on top of that, you have to deal with the break meter, which is constantly building because you're being hit with attacks. So right there, you could see that my break meter was like totally filled. So had I been hit with an attack, my guard would have gotten broken, or whatever, and I would have been staggered on the ground, or whatever, unable to move, or respond to anything. And the thing is it seems to just build itself, even if you soul shield correctly, and sometimes I've noticed it even builds while you're hitting things. So, I don't exactly understand the depth of the break mechanic, and I feel like that's what gets me fucked a lot in this game. The game itself, like, formulaically, is very good in certain respects, and it's equally detractively bad in others. So, like, this game is... I would describe it as intolerably good. Like, that is my 2 cents on it. So, you'll notice that, like, when I fight the majority of the bosses, I don't really struggle that much. It's usually bullshit in this game that gets me killed, or like I said, like massive groups of enemies where I just can't do shit. Also, in case you were on the fence of whether this is a Final Fantasy game or not, that's a Cactuar. So yes, this is like a legit Final Fantasy game. It's just Team Ninja made it, so it's like infinitely more complicated than it should be. But yeah, like, I never really found this game difficult, even when I was getting ass-fucked, like when I was playing underleveled and, like, I didn't use, like, 90% of the game mechanics. I think I did quite well. Most circumstances where I got fucked was literally just enemy ganks in a room. So it's like, whatever. Yeah, I started over. I wanted to play from the very beginning of the game, for stream, obviously. Job Affinity. A battle set's job grants job affinity bonuses to both battle sets. Having affinity with a job will grant you some of that job's powers in battle and allow you to gain EXP for it as well. So, what we're going to do is we're going to swap over to the mace. And I can't play with the mace for shit, but we're going to switch our job to mage. Mages are masters of utilizing action abilities to break enemies. Normal attacks with a mace will recover ample MP, and charged attacks can take big chunks out of an enemy's break gauge, allowing mages to break foes of all the faster. Mages can cast spells with R2 and will recover MP while casting. So, what we're going to do is we are going to cast water on this bitch so we can get rid of this fucking fire so we can cross it. And there's a level later that I really hate the design of because it's entirely gimmickly focused on that kind of mechanic. Attributes. Each attack has individual attributes. Physical attacks have the slash, pierce, or strike attributes, while magic attacks have the fire, ice, lightning, earth, water, wind, holy, or dark attributes. Some enemies are weak to certain attributes and take greatly increased break damage from attacks sharing those attributes. That is not the weapon I thought I had on. And like I said before, one of the things that I mentioned is, one of my other gripes with this game is the bosses are not exactly super imaginative. And like, I imagine that Koei Tecmo really tried to pay hardcore attention to the source material. So there probably wasn't a lot they could do to differentiate it, like formulaically, like the way they would have gone about it. But like, they did what they could within their parameters with their source material, like given that, so... I honestly think the first boss, the boss that we fight in this map, is one of the best designed bosses in the entire game. Because literally everything he does is entirely learnable, and he's totally fair. But some of the other bosses later are just like, what the fuck? Like, Iron Golem is a complete piece of shit in Phase 2. So, When you complete the game, you get Chaos difficulty, and then after Chaos difficulty, where everything is manageable, you get Bahamut Mode. And then in Bahamut Mode, the bosses have new attacks and shit, and they have, like, new follow-ups. And some of the hitboxes for those attacks are just fucking insanely stupid. Reducing max break gauge. Enemy gauges refill slowly, making Soul Burst a difficult proposition when there are a lot of foes about. Lowering an enemy's max break gauge will prevent them from recovering as much gauge and slow the rate at which it recovers. When facing many foes, use Lightbringer often to lower enemy max break gauges. So the thing is we need 2 bars of MP to cast Lightbringer, and we don't have that, so essentially what I'm going to go do is I'm going to just go Big Dick Rambo mode on a shit ton of enemies. Hopefully I can build up my MP, and hopefully we can use Lightbringer. And that's what I'm talking about. So, like, right there, like, imagine that enemy doing, like, half your health and damage and instantly knocking you down. Like, I'm not even kidding, that's, like, what 90% of my first playthrough was. Yeah. It would be nice if they developed some sort of system where only 2 enemies or 3 enemies are capable of aggroing you at a time. That would have made this shit infinitely less annoying and way more manageable. But instead, they're just like, oh, pile on, group cluster fuck out of the camera so you can't see what enemies are doing, and it sucks. Like, it's kind of obnoxious to a degree. Like, it doesn't seem that bad right now. Like, it seems manageable, but, like, trust me, later, it's ludicrously stupid. It's really bad later. Especially when enemies are doing, like, fucking magic attacks off camera and shit like that. Yeah, I'm running low because this thing just ignores everything, so. There we go. So that's what I mean. So, like, proportionately, like, you can see when I'm fighting, like, 1 or 2 enemies at a time as opposed to fighting, like, 8 at a time. I'm infinitely better at just tackling, like, 2 enemies. But, like, in situations like that where they just chuck 14 enemies in a room and cause you to rinse through all your fucking potions, it's just really frustrating for no reason because they didn't think ahead. Like, they just came up with, like, a basic game plan, and they're like, okay, this is how the game's gonna work. And then instead of having, like, a actually manageable amount of enemies aggro you at one time, they're just like, oh, all the enemies are aware of your presence, and they will just randomly come up and fuck with you, or shoot a spell from across the map and fucking instantly kill you. And that's what this game is like. So, like I said, right there, it seems manageable, and it is, but, like, later on, when you face tougher enemies, and you're, like, under-geared, imagine how shitty that would be. Interacting with devices such as ladders will create a shortcut to cubes and expand the area you can safely explore, so be sure to keep an eye out for them. And that's another thing about this game, is I feel like the shortcuts were not as integral as they were in previous games. And while we're here at the cube set, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my gear, and I'm going to improve whatever I can. What's up, Winter? Weapons and armor may have job affinities. You may be granted job affinity bonus based on your total job affinity. Carefully select your job and equipment to get the most out of these bonuses. Neo 4, not even close. Okay, so we're going to take the caster coat level 3, even though we have level 4 shit. Because you'll notice that the defensive value is 8, and then the defensive value on this is 4. And that doesn't really feel like a great difference, so we're just going to roll with that. Gloves don't really matter. Puglis, we're going to save that for what's his dick, but we're going to upgrade our pants to those level 3s. And then we're just going to roll with these level 5 Twilight boots. And then for Ash, we're going to give him these level 5 weapons so he can do a bit more damage. We're going to give him one of those. Might as well give him the caster coat, I don't know. And then we'll give him those, and we'll give him those. So he gets a little bit of Puglis affinity, which is not going to do shit because it's only at 40%. We're going to give Jed those so he has more damage output and he has some affinity. We're going to give him that so he has a fuck ton of affinity. Duelist affinity has reached 50%, effects acquired, critical bonus 1. So as you go up in proficiency, or affinity rather, so as you go up in affinity you get more abilities and stuff like that. Like I was saying, it's basically equivalent to Neo set bonuses. Some single pieces of equipment take up multiple slots. For example, the Pale Protector occupies both the body and leg slots. Although you sacrifice an equipment slot, items of this type make up for it by offering higher stats. But that's not always the case. It's kind of random. You have to like situationally look at it and just determine whether or not, like using best judgment, like what you want to go for. And what else we're going to do while we're here is we're going to go into our battle settings. As you can see here, I don't have any combo abilities because I haven't unlocked anything. And these are command abilities, something else I neglected on my first playthrough, so I'm really trying to use this playthrough to pay, like, critical attention to everything. So, we are going to go to job trees, not battle settings, you fucking dickhead. And we have 6 job points. So here is essentially your skill tree. And then when you reach the bottom, you can unlock different jobs for you to pick, which have different effects and shit like that, and have a different main focus. So, for example, Swordsman, Spinning Slash. This is what the Swordsman job does. A Spinning Slash type attack, hold R2 to continue spinning and gradually pick up speed. Switch to a charged attack by pressing R1 or an enhanced guard by pressing L1. And then if you look at this one, Berserker, temporarily increases attack and decreases break damage taken. In addition, temporarily decreases the chance of being staggered and increases the chance of staggering enemies. And then down at the bottom it says jobs required to unlock, Marauder and Swordsman. So we're not going to get this until we unlock those 2 jobs by going down the other skill trees that have those jobs at the bottom. And then if we were to pick the Berserker job, like let's say we had it available, we would no longer have this Spinning Slash ability because it's exclusive to the Swordsman. But because we're going to be rolling with Swordsman for quite a while, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase my job affinity to get more effects. We're also going to get that. We're also going to get that. Onslaught is a very good ability, early game. Equip acquired abilities from the battle settings menu. You can reach the menu by pressing X while selecting the acquired ability. I might as well go with that because it's the only thing I have available and I want as many benefits as I can have. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go to battle settings, and then down here you'll notice there's an exclamation mark, so now I can equip a combo ability. Equip combo abilities from the battle settings menu. Combo abilities can be used by pressing R2 during a normal attack. So we can change out Raging Slash for Onslaught, which we're totally going to do. Attack type slash strike, stat bonus stamina. And then if you press this button, it'll give you a little demonstration video of what the move actually does. And this is very good at breaking guard and maintaining offensive. So I'm going to put Raging Slash on my R1 to R2 combo, and this is where the simplicity that I mentioned earlier in comparison to Neo comes in handy. So basically, instead of weapons having like very expanded movesets with like 50,000 different inputs that you just have to gain muscle memory for and remember and shit like that and just accustom yourself to, this game is more like, do this amount of R1s and then follow up with an R2 for this move, do this amount of whatever for that move, and then hold this or whatever and follow up with that for that move, blah, 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 blah. And then another gripe I have with the control scheme for the combat is the stick moves fucking suck ass. The registration for the stick moves to actually go out is bad as fuck. Like, it's super terrible, so I never use them. So I'm gonna put Spinning Slash on that one. Actually, no, I'm not, because I think I can just use that by pressing R2. Whatever, I don't know, I'll figure it out. So that's that. We rested at the thing. I'm gonna jack this ability and then leave the Fireball Man alone so I have a fucking active ability, so when I go up here I'll be able to use it and hopefully clear some shit out of the way with a little bit less trouble than I would normally have.
Now then.
This is the way we came in because that's where the ladder was, so we're going this way. Lances and Lancers. Lancers can assail foes from a distance with their long reach and exploit their enemies' weaknesses with its weapon skills of every attack type. So, like it was saying before, like the Greatsword has Slash and Pierce for that one attack, right? So this has all the properties of physical damage. So this has Pierce, Strike, and Slash. It has all 3. They can also use Lance Hurl with R2 holding down the button will enhance the attack. So, like, I tried playing Lancer, and I do not like it at all. It is really awkward.
Enemy spotted. Let's knock him down. Show me what you can do. Well done.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my allies to sit there and fuck with them so I can freely take out the Fireball Man. And taking out the Fireball Man, fuck that goblin in the ass. So, like, the strategy that goes into this game, honestly, is quite good. But some of the enemy gangbangs later are just, like, intolerable. And it's one of those games where you just have to, like, run your head at a brick wall until you get past it. And it's kind of stupid in that regard. So something I haven't done is I haven't set up a secondary job yet, so we should probably look into that so I can actually get accustomed to swapping my job over. So as you can see here, I have swordsman and then I have mage because I equipped the mace earlier. But I don't play mace and I don't play mage, so I should probably figure that shit out. One accessory can be equipped to each battle set. Accessories may grant special abilities that cannot be obtained by weapons or armor, such as enemy instant abilities. But the thing is the enemy instant abilities are fucking useless as shit. They do jack fuck. They do nothing. So literally, it's a negligible mechanic, and I don't even know why it's included in the game, combat-wise, if it doesn't fucking benefit you whatsoever. It's just kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I guess it's just one of those, like, additional little things they just worked in because customization, so. That gives me spirit, and I don't exactly know what spirit is good for. I can't remember. He just got a new weapon, but it has less affinity, so if I equip this weapon, my affinity is going to go down, but it doesn't really make a difference anyway. It's just more damage being dealt. Or it's the same amount of damage being dealt. So, like, there's literally no difference between these two. Even though this one is... Oh, green is a higher rarity than blue. Okay, I thought it was the other way around. I'm a fucking idiot. Okay. So green is higher than blue, so that explains why that affinity is better. That makes perfect sense. Don't listen to me, I am a fuck. Oh yeah, that's right, I went in there to set up a secondary job, which I totally forgot about. So, I don't have a sword yet, but I am going to equip a shield. And I guess I'll put that on. That gives me swordsman affinity, but I don't need that playing sword fighter. Okay, so that takes up a leg slot and a torso slot. That makes sense. Okay.
Time for a change.
Yeah, but like I said, I have finished this game already. I beat the game. I feel like I didn't really play the game, though, and that's more so what this playthrough is for. Plus, I already had it in mind to play this game. I just got really bored, and I was looking for something to play that would retain my interest before Elden Ring. So this is what I got saddled with, pretty much. So Jed's wearing that. We got him a set of gloves, but they're not very good, but they're gloves, so we'll give them to him anyway. We got us a set of gloves for Lancer, but we don't play Lancer, so that's garbage for us. And this is what I was talking about, where the proficiencies in the gear really plays into, like, how you have to work your setups and stuff like that. And there's so much fucking RNG with it that it's ludicrously silly. So while I have Lightbringer active, I'm just gonna tank the fuck out of this shit. And just hopefully get past it. Now I have enough MP for Lightbringer again, so I'm just gonna cast it again and then go ham on this wall, hopefully. See, like, that little goblin hit me in the back because I'm just focusing on this, and I knew he was there, so that's, like, totally fine. But, like, imagine that thing summoning, like, 20 enemies, and then just, like, having enemies attack you in the back, and you can't take out 20 enemies, so you're trying to focus the source of where they're coming from, and you just get ass-raped to death, like, multiple times over.
Finally a break.
There we go.
This will take us straight to the tower.
Yeah, coincidentally enough, this palace is actually not very well constructed, obviously. All it takes is sticking our arm through a fucking dark wormhole like James Sunderland in Silent Hill 2, and we get to progress through the level. Changing special battle sets. Chain cancel. Press triangle immediately after using an action ability to activate a chain cancel and switch battle sets faster than usual. Use this to unleash a follow-up attack on the enemy, move out of their range, and more. So that's also very integral in this game. But the thing about that system is it requires MP to perform. So if you don't have enough MP to activate an action ability, you can't do a swift cancel or whatever. which I think kind of pales in comparison to Neo being able to swap your stance pretty much whenever the fuck you want on the fly, even while you're in the middle of an action. Blockable versus unblockable attacks. This is where the bane of my existence comes in. Unblockable attacks in this game suck donkey dick. Like, they are terrible. Attacks cloaked in a sinister aura cannot be blocked. If you see one of these, move away and evade to avoid taking damage. You will be able to block these in casual mode, which I don't play, so... And the reason I say that the unblockable attacks fucking suck is because they usually give them to enemies that have absurd range or like ridiculous tracking or some stupid bullshit, and they're just like, it makes it feel like the attacks that you're designed to avoid are almost unevadable. So you'll notice that when I hit the skeleton twice right there, he did a special purple move. He does that consistently every single time, and that's just something you have to learn fighting them. Is they'll always follow up with that move. Same way like in Sekiro, when you shoot the gun dudes or whatever, if you hit them 2 times, they will follow up with a gunshot. So you can use that and abuse that to your advantage. So, or no, they follow up with a thrust, not a gunshot, my bad. Thank you, Ubsy, for the follow, man. Welcome to Stranger of Paradise. I suck at this game. I may sound like I know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I assure you, in little time, you will find out that I do not. Because this game kicks my ass and rails me. Quite bad. Like, right there, I pressed circle, and the game just did not respond, so, like, that's another thing that I hate about this game, is drop inputs matter a whole hell of a lot in this game. Because this game is so rhythmic with the soul shield counter system that, like, if the game just does not read your input and neglects to take it, you can find yourself getting fucked incredibly easily. And, like I said, like, all the combat mechanics that they introduce and propose to you are very integral, like, you want to learn them. It's just like Neo, like, you don't want to avoid the stance switching or the key pulsing or anything like that, and that was stupid, I don't know why the fuck I did that. But, like, they're very integral, you don't want to ignore them. Because there's much more benefit to embracing them and learning them and adapting them and interweaving them, like, to your playstyle, than there is neglecting them. And it will open up the combat and how easy the game feels, like, a whole hell of a lot more, so... Anytime a Koei Tecmo game presents you a mechanic, likelihood is that it's very important. And you want to do your best to assess it and just try and adopt it as soon as possible and just get it ingrained.
So thick I can taste it. This is it, no doubt.
So before we go into the boss room and meet Mr. Chaos Man, using Anima Shards. Anima Shards can be used from the job tree screen to earn job experience. Joining multiplayer games as well as a guest will learn you more Anima Shards than standard play. You can use Anima Shards to obtain XP for your allies' jobs on the battle settings screen. So, because I have 4 skill points, we are going to get... Oh, decreases damage taken while the ability is active. That sounds handy dandy. Combo effects enhance all combo abilities that are assigned to a specific slot. These effects only trigger immediately after R1 normal attack hits. Combo effects that can be learned vary by job. So I don't think I fully understand those yet, so I want to explore those and figure that shit out. So I'm going to go into battle settings real quick. So it's not a combo ability, so it just triggers, like, when a certain condition is met? I suppose? Maybe? So if I go into job trees and I read that skill again... Why is it going into mage? What the fuck? Okay, whatever. Combo ability effects. Enhances abilities set to hold R1 to R2. Huh. Okay, so that didn't seem to do shit. I didn't see a buff appear, so, like, I don't feel like I fully understand that yet. Anyway, let's go meet the boss man, shall we?